We're working to connect a region of over 600 cultural bridges between our lands.
Hello, I'm Alma Angeles. Welcome to ASEAN in Focus. We're coming to you live from Manila in Vietnam. Hello, Charlene.
Hello, I'm Charlene Navaja, bringing you the news in the dynamic ASEAN region.
On today's headlines.
Nitong nakaraang linggo,
Health Undersecretary Maria Rosario Vergeire said the country remains to be at moderate risk level for COVID-19 transmission with 22.2% case positivity rate.
Stricter quarantine protocols last month have led to the displacement of around 150,000 workers, according to a new report from the Department of Labor and Employment.
The race to lead the Philippines kicked off on Tuesday with former Senator Bongbong Marcos the favorite to succeed President Duterte.
And according to Tiger News, Thailand's iconic noodle dish, Pad Thai, has made it into the Oxford Online Dictionary.
First, here in the country, Health Undersecretary Maria Rosario Vergeire said the country remains to be at moderate risk level for COVID-19 transmission. That with 22.2% case positivity rate. But she also said that from the peak of admissions in January 22, total bed utilization rate has declined by 15 percentage points and is now classified at low risk at 37% utilization rate. But there's more. Let's listen in.
Nitong nakaraang linggo, tinatayang mas mababa ng 52% ang naitalang national average daily cases ng COVID-19 kumpara nung nakaraang linggo. Bagamat nakikita natin ang tuloy-tuloy na pagbaba ng mga kaso sa kabuuan ng ating bansa, may ilan pa ring mga rehiyon ang nananatiling mataas ang kaso ng COVID-19, partikular na yung mga nasa labas ng National Capital Region. Kaya naman muling pinapaalala ng Kagawaran ng Kalusugan ang ating pagsunod sa minimum public health standards na mask, ugas, iwas, airflow. Gayun din, patuloy namin kayong hinihikayat na magpabakuna na at magpaturok na ng inyong mga boosters sa lalong madaling panahon. Bagamat bumababa na ang ating mga kaso, nananatili pa rin nasa moderate risk level ang ating bansa na kasalukuyang mayroong 22% positivity rate. Mabuting balita naman ang buhat galing sa kagawaran dahil bumaba ng 15 percentage points ang ating total bed utilization rate sa bansa na ngayon ay nasa 37% at classified na siya bilang low risk. Bunga nito, ating mabilisang pagbabakuna at pagtitiwala ng ating mga kababayan sa ating mga bakunang garantisadong ligtas at epektibo. Nang dahil dito, di hamak na mas mababa ang bilang ng mga naospital noong Omicron situation kung ikukumpara natin nung nagkaroon tayo ng Delta variant noong Setyembre noong isang taon. Gayunpaman, kahit po tayo ay nasa moderate risk na, patuloy po ang DOH sa pagmamonitor ng mga rehiyong may high risk in case transmission. Ang mga rehiyong ito ay ang Regions 9, 10, 11, and 12. Patuloy po ang kagawaran sa pagpapabuti ng mga local governments, access at home care services na magsisilbing tulong upang hindi mapuno ang ating mga ospital.
Meanwhile, a Chinese city of 3.5 million near the border with Vietnam was on lockdown Monday after more than 70 coronavirus cases were discovered there over the past 3 days. China, the only major world economy still sticking to a staunch zero COVID policy, is on high alert for any outbreaks as it hosts the Beijing Winter Olympics. Local officials in the city of Baise in the southern Guangxi region announced Sunday that no one would be allowed to leave the city, while residents of some districts would be confined to their homes. Citywide traffic controls will be implemented, according to Vice Mayor Gu Junyan in a briefing. Gu added that residents of some neighborhoods in smaller rural cities and counties under Baise's jurisdiction have been placed under strict home confinement, while others cannot leave their district. Baise, located about 100 kilometers from the Vietnamese border, on Friday discovered its first local case, a traveler who had returned home for the week-long Lunar New Year holiday, according to officials. Since the pandemic, China has built a heavily enforced wire mesh fence along its southern border to keep out illegal migrants from Vietnam and Myanmar, as well as potential COVID-19 infections. Mass testing is already underway for residents.
The Land Transport Federation of Thailand, or LTFT, has vowed to step up a campaign seeking the removal of Energy Minister Supathanapong Punitchau if he fails to solve the high diesel prices within 7 days. According to the Bangkok Post, lorry drivers yesterday gathered outside the Energy Ministry on Vibhavadi, Rangsit Road to stage a truck power final season protest. The first truck power protest was held in November. LTFT Chairman Apichart Prairungruang said the group has repeatedly called on the minister to address the problem, but their calls have fallen on deaf ears. Somgun Norkai, Deputy Permanent Secretary at the Energy Ministry on Tuesday, accepted the petitions and pledged that the Energy Ministry has a raft of measures ready, such as reducing electricity fees and the price of liquefied petroleum gas, as well as capping diesel at 30 baht a liter. And the proposed sale of Norwegian telecoms giant Telenor's Myanmar subsidiary could put sensitive personal data of millions of the hands of junta, according to a complaint filed on Tuesday. Myanmar has been in chaos since a coup last year sparked huge protests and a bloody military crackdown on dissent. Telenor announced in July that it planned to sell its subsidiary Telenor Myanmar and later cited junta demands that it install monitoring equipment on the network as a reason for leaving the country. A proposed sale to Lebanese financial company M1 Group and a consortium headed by a figure close to the ruling junta has been approved by the military, according to the local media reports. But a Myanmar citizen has filed a complaint with the Norway's Data Protection Authority, arguing the sale would result in a dangerous transfer of control over sensitive user data of more than 18 million Telenor customers. Any sale would breach EU privacy rules, or GDPR. The complaint argues, asking the body to investigate and ensure any sale would not infringe the data rights of those affected. The complaint claims customers' names, addresses, phone numbers, national registration card details, messages, call histories are held by Telenor. Activist groups say any new owner could comply with future requests from the junta to provide cell phone data. In Oslo, the parent company Telenor, which is majority owned by the Norwegian state, argued that the Burmese authorities require operators to keep this data for several years and that deleting would be in breach of the telecom's license, which is a prerequisite to run telecoms operations in the country. Violating or not complying with the local regulations under the existing legal framework would have severe and completely unacceptable consequences for our employees. Gry Road Nordus, head of Telenor Communications told AFP. Nordos added that since Telenor did not exert any control on the handling of customer data by Telenor Myanmar, GDPR did not apply to customer data there. The Norwegian Data Protection Authority also confirmed it had received the complaint. We examine all complaints that we receive as a general rule and will therefore open a case based on the information we have received. Spokesperson Guru Skaltvedt wrote in an email to AFP. Telenor, part owned by the Norwegian government, has had a commercial presence in Myanmar since 2014. And the Cambodian Prime Minister Hun Sen has backtracked his declaration Monday that an Australian economist detained for almost a year in Myanmar had been released, hours after the junta regime denied the claim. Sean Turnell was working as an advisor to Myanmar civilian leader Aung San Suu Kyi when he was detained shortly after the coup in February last year. He's been charged with violating Myanmar's official secrets law and faces a maximum penalty of 14 years in prison if found guilty. On Monday morning, Hun Sen said Turnell had been released previous day, but the evening he issued a retraction on Facebook saying he had received the wrong information. The Cambodian strongman who met with Myanmar's junta chief last month said earlier on Monday that he had passed on a request from the Australian government for Turnell's release. Hun Sen said Min Aung Hlaing responded that he would consider it positively. The junta spokesman Zhao Min Tun denied that Turnell had been released, but acknowledged that Hun Sen had brought up the matter during the visit. The first to Myanmar by any foreign leader since last year's coup. Turnell has appeared in court every Thursday in the capital, Naypyidaw, for his trial, where he is co-accused alongside Suu Kyi. Human rights groups have raised concerns about his prosecution, particularly after the Australian embassy was denied access to his court hearing in September. The exact details of Turnell's alleged offense have not been made public, although state television has said he had access to secret state financial information and tried to flee the country.
Meanwhile, Myanmar's junta suffered a fresh diplomatic blow Thursday as regional bloc ASEAN barred its top diplomat from attending an upcoming meeting of foreign ministers. Cambodia, which currently holds the bloc's rotating chairmanship, said there had been too little progress on a 5-point consensus agreed by leaders last year to try to defuse the crisis gripping Myanmar. The country has been in turmoil since the military ousted Aung San Suu Kyi's civilian government a year ago, with more than 1,500 civilians since killed in crackdowns on anti-junta protests, according to a local monitoring group. Since there has been little progress in carrying out ASEAN's 5-point consensus, the ASEAN member states did not reach a consensus to invite Myanmar SAC's Foreign Minister Winamang Win to participate in the upcoming Foreign Ministers retreat, according to Cambodian Foreign Ministry spokesman Cham Saun Ri. Myanmar's military government calls itself the State Administration Council, or SAC. Cham Saun Ri said, "We have asked Myanmar to send a non-political representative instead." The snub comes after the 10-Nation Association of Southeast Asian Nations took the unprecedented step of barring junta leader Min Aung Hlaing from a summit in October. It also represented a rare rebuke from ASEAN, long seen as a toothless talking shop, but which has sought to lead diplomatic efforts to tackle the Myanmar crisis. Myanmar is increasingly isolated on the international stage, with Cambodian strongman ruler Hun Sen's January visit, the first by any foreign leader since the general seized power. But violence has continued, with anti-junta groups clashing regularly with the military, and the World Bank has already warned Myanmar's economy is likely to contract by almost a fifth, or contracted by almost a fifth last year. And the news continues here on Eagle News or here on ASEAN in Focus. We'll be right back.
Alam namin ang iyong pagsisikap. Dama namin ang iyong mga sakripisyo. Kita namin ang pagharap mo sa bawat pagsubok. Kaya sa kabila ng mga hamon ng buhay, nandito kami para umalalay. Kasi katulad mo, gusto rin namin ang magandang bukas para sa kanya. Hatid namin ang dekalidad na edukasyon at makabagong pasilidad sa abot kayang halaga. Kaya huwag ka na mangamba. Sasamahan ka namin tuparin ang mga pangarap niya. Maaasahan mong sulit dito ang mga pinagsikapan mo. Sa aming mga makabagong pasilidad at sistema ng edukasyon. May lalabas natin ang aking talino at mga kakayahan niya. Kahit sa munting halaga, makakasiguro ka na makakasabay siya sa mabilis na pag-ikot ng mundo. Sa New Era, karamay mo kami sa bawat hamon. Kaagapay mo kami sa bawat hakbang. Kasama mo kami sa bawat ngiti at tagumpay.
We're open for business, giving MSMEs the latest market trends and business opportunities. Open for business, only on Net 25.
May mga bagay na dapat sakto lang. Okay na eh.
Dami naman spray yan.
Naging OA pa.
Okay na.
Kumari, naging tayo.
Tapos bigla kitang sinapa.
OA niyan sa sakit.
Tingnan natin gano'ng kaliwanag ito.
Wow! Okay ang excitement ha. Heto na ang Sin Zone. I deserve an explanation.
Sabi mo sa akin, mamatay ka kapag naghiwalay tayo.
I deserve an acceptable reason.
I wanna higa!
Funniest Nakaball videos.
Welcome back to the program. Over 2 million Filipinos are expected to be employed through the government's various infrastructure initiatives this year, including the Infrastructure Flagship Program, or IFP. In a briefing on Tuesday, National Economic and Development Authority, OIC, Undersecretary for Investment Programming Roderick M. Planta said, based on the agency's estimates, the government's infrastructure investments will translate to 2.5 million jobs this year. Last year, the investments may have created 2.3 million indirect and direct jobs. Based on NEDA estimates using disbursement figures, Planta said the country's infrastructure spending could reach 5.8% of GDP this year and may have reached 5.1% of GDP last year. He added the impact of GDP by infrastructure spending this year will be the highest in the past 5 years. Planta said the BBB program is the overall banner program of the government for accelerating infrastructure development in the country. As intended, the program aims to sustain inclusive economic growth or create jobs and improve the quality of life in both urban and rural communities. In another news, Asian markets rose Wednesday following a positive performance on Wall Street as traders prepared for the release of highly anticipated U.S. inflation data, while sentiment was also buoyed by signs of easing Russia or Ukraine tensions. Oil prices also enjoyed a small bounce on demand optimism after 2 days of losses fueled by the positive vibes from Eastern Europe and as talks on Iran nuclear deal appear to be progressing. With speculation swirling over the Federal Reserve's plan to battle soaring prices, global equities have fluctuated wildly at the start of the year as traders try to position themselves for a series of interest rate hikes that are likely to begin in March. The prospect of removal of cheap cash, which has pushed markets to record or multi-year highs, has particularly hit tech firms as they are more susceptible to higher rates. However, the sector helped New York's three main indexes to healthy gains on Tuesday, and Asia followed suit in early trade Wednesday. Hong Kong jumped more than 1% thanks to a surge in market heavyweights Alibaba and JD.com, while Tokyo, Shanghai, Sydney, Seoul, Singapore, Wellington, Taipei, Manila, and Jakarta were also well up. Stricter quarantine protocols last month have led to the displacement of around 150,000 workers, according to a new report from the Department of Labor and Employment, or DOLE. In its latest displacement report, DOLE said a total of 53,057 workers permanently lost their jobs last month, twice the 25,226 in the same period last year. Of these workers, 48,193 were retrenched by 2,243 establishments, while the remaining 4,864 lost were affected by the permanent closure of 245 establishments. Metro Manila registered the most number of displaced workers with 27,866 and was followed by regions 7, 3, and 4A. To note, the alert level in the National Capital Region was raised to 3 last month due to its soaring COVID-19 infections. The top 3 industries that registered the biggest jobs losses were construction with 12,411, other service activities with 7,777, and manufacturing with 3,798. And COVID-19 NRC recommendation to reopen borders needs further study, says Hisham, the Star. Alfred Balmes is here for his live report. Alfred?
Hi, Charlene. Good afternoon. The Immigration Department, Health Ministry, as well as Tourism, Arts and Culture Ministry will study the National Recovery Council recommendation to fully reopen Malaysia's border on March 1. Senior Minister Defense Dato Sri Hishamuddin Hussein said the Quartet of Ministry has instructed that these parties conduct preparation to see if the borders could be reopened by next month. He understands the National Recovery Council Chairman Tan Sri Muhyiddin Yassin had made an announcement Tuesday, February 8 morning on this matter, and the Quartet level, they have already instructed the Immigration Department, Health Ministry, and Tourism, Arts and Culture Ministry to study the matter. He told reporters at Wisma Pertahan on Tuesday, once they have discussed the matter at length, they will bring it back to the Quartet. According to him, they want people to come into our country, but other countries have made the same decision to open their borders. He added that this is a big decision which can only be discussed at cabinet level or the COVID-19 pandemic management special committee level. NRC Chairman Tan Sri Muhyiddin Yassin was reported as saying that Malaysia's border were set to fully reopen on March 1. It was recommended by the NRC that the country's borders be fully reopened in due time to support the nation's recovery. In connection with this, the Council agrees that the nation's borders are to fully open as early as March 1 without need for mandatory quarantine. However, Muhyiddin noted that those entering the country would have to undergo COVID-19 tests before and right after arriving in the country as recommended by the Health Ministry. The borders have been partially closed since early 2020 following the COVID-19 outbreak to check the spread of the virus. Muhi then added the borders open matters was raised by Immigration Director General Datuk Sri Khairul Jasmi Daud during the meeting. The quartet to minister involves the Finance, Health, Defense, and Education Ministry. Back to you, Charlene.
Thank you so much for your updates, Alfred. That's a good news right there. But you keep safe.
Likewise, live reporting from Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. This is Alfred Balmes. We live in interesting times.
And we go back to Vietnam. A number of services and goods shall be entitled to a 2% reduction of value-added tax, or VAT, from February 1 to December 31 this year. The decree was issued for the recovery of the national economy from the complications of the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic. Specifically, VAT shall be reduced to 8% from 10% for services and goods, excluding telecom services, banking and financial services, insurance and real estate services, metallurgy, chemical products and goods, and services subject to special consumption tax. According to government-run website DGP, the decree also stipulates that grants and donations of enterprises and organizations to COVID-19 fight shall be deducted from taxable corporate income tax, or CIT, when calculating the CIT of the tax period of 2022. The amount of grants and donations must be confirmed in writing. The government estimated that the total amount of tax cuts would reach 51.4 trillion Vietnam dollars, or $2.2 billion US dollars. The tax breaks are expected to help businesses, organizations, and people weather pandemic-triggered difficulties, thereby recovering and developing production and business. Health officials in Thailand are urging the public to take precautions against mosquito bites, with dengue fever likely to become more prevalent this year. Dr. Opar Karnikavinpon from the Department of Disease Control says the number of dengue infections decreased in the last 2 years, primarily as a result of people staying home during the pandemic. However, the mosquito-borne illness is expected to become more widespread this year. According to a Thai press or Thai PBS World report, the patients are thought to have been unaware that they had dengue and used the over-the-counter medication. Opart warns that non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs such as aspirin and diclofenac are often used instead of paracetamol to bring down a fever. However, their misuse can lead to internal bleeding and death. Since January 1, 193 people have contracted dengue fever, with 2 patients, a 37-year-old and a 40-year-old, dying from the illness. Dengue fever symptoms include high fever, which can last for between 2 and 7 days, headache and muscle aches, a red rash on the hands, legs, and other parts of the body, stomach ache, nausea, and loss of appetite. Some patients can go on to develop more severe symptoms and can collapse from shock or even die. Opart advises family members to monitor the condition of patients closely and seek medical attention if fever doesn't begin to reduce in 2 days with temperature-reducing medication or through cooling the body with wipes. Former Prime Minister and now National Recovery Chairman of Malaysia, Muhyiddin Yassin, said he had tested positive for COVID-19. He underwent an RT-PCR test this morning, but the former Prime Minister said he is only experiencing mild symptoms. He also said he feels that he is in good health. He said in line with the Health Ministry's protocol, he will be self-quarantining at home. This he said in a Facebook post, and asked the public to pray for his health as well as his family's. He said, quote, "To anyone who might have been my close contact, my advice is to abide by the protocol set by the Health Ministry." The number of new cases logged on Monday was 11,034 in Malaysia. This was the first time the 11,000 mark had been breached since October 1 last year. Malaysia's caseload began to spike from the middle of last month. Back in December, the numbers fluctuated between 2,000 and 3,000 new cases per day before hitting an upward trend at the end of the month. And the news continues here on ASEAN in Focus. Charlene and I will be back right after this.
This week, Tayo'y gagawa ng pansit canton gisado, isa sa aking paborito, chicken, potato, celery salad, at ang ating tuna melt on sourdough toast. Ito po ang tinatawag ko na comfort food. At ito na po, titikman ko na po. Lasang Pinoy na Pinoy. Pusong Pinoy. Walang tatalo sa pansit natin.
Maraming salamat po, kapatid na Eduardo B. Manalo.
Maraming salamat po sa kapatid na Eduardo B. Manalo.
Maraming salamat po, kapatid na Eduardo B. Manalo.
Karamiwan na kami po'y hinahamak at tinataboy. Pero buong puso niyo kaming tinanggap at kinupkop. Kung dati, kung saan kami naninirahan, ngayon may permanente na kaming tirahan.
Maraming salamat sa kabuhayang pinagkaloob niyo. Hindi na po kami mangangamba sa aming kinabukasan.
Maraming salamat po sa pagbibigay ng edukasyon sa amin upang matupad na ang aming mga pangarap.
Mahal na mahal po namin kayo.
Welcome back. The race to lead the Philippines kicked off yesterday with former Senator and now presidential aspirant Bongbong Marcos, the favorite to succeed President Rodrigo Duterte. Marcos Jr. has vowed to reunify the country. Incumbent Vice President Leni Robredo, a former lawyer for the disadvantaged and arrival of Marcos Jr. and Duterte, is a distant second in voter surveys. Here's more.
Na ako'y tatakbo dahil ang aking layunin, ang aking pangarap para sa ating bansa ay ipagkaisa muli ang sambayanang Pilipino. Ang pagkakaisa ay naging adhikain ko dahil sa aking tapat na paniniwala na ang pagkakaisa ay ang unang hakbang upang tayo ay makaraos na dito sa gitna ng krisis na nasaan tayo, sa gitna ng krisis ng pandemya, sa gitna ng krisis ng ekonomiya na dala rin ng pandemya. Kung pag-aaralan po natin ang kasaysayan ng Pilipinas, lahat po ng nangyari sa atin, lahat ng kahirapan na dumating, lahat ng sakuna na inabutan ng ating mahal na bansang Pilipinas, tayo po ay nakaraos lamang dahil tayo'y nagkaisa. Hinarap natin lahat ng kahirapan. Hinarap natin lahat ng sakuna. Hinarap natin lahat ng krisis na isang buong loob, isang Pilipinas na nagkakaisa, na nagmamahalan, na nagtutulungan. Alam naman po natin na ang isang tao, kahit gaano kagaling, kahit gaano kasipag, kahit gaano kalalim ang pagmamahal sa ating bansa, ay isang tao lamang. Hindi kaya ng isang tao na iangat ang Pilipinas. Kahit na ang buong pamahalaan, kung pamahalaan lang, ay hindi pa rin kayang nag-iisa, magbabago sa ating bansa.
Kinakamusta ko po yung mga residente at sila tatanggapin nyo na sobrang proud din kayo sa mga ginawa nyo. Bakit ko po ito sa inyo kinikwento at bakit andito tayo ngayon?
Walang kayang tumumbas sa pinagbigkis nating lakas. Kaya, tara na. Ipanalo na natin ito.
Sa pagmamayabang, talaga mayroong salita, no? Parehong salita, gawa, at saka yung paninindigan. So doon ako humuhugot ng lakas ng loob. Maski may lumabas na mga previous surveys na iba yung nangunguna, sa oras ng halalan, tulad ko, babalik ako dito, sila babalik din sa kapwa-kapitay nyo. As I mentioned earlier, no, we will run a very disciplined campaign. Disciplined in the sense na dahil may health protocols, I think yun doon kami mag-stand out. No? Makikita yung diferensya compared sa ibang mga kandidato. Yes, pwede pag-usapan yung ibang kandidato pero hindi sa pamamaraan na sisiraan. Halimbawa, merong isang kandidato na nangako na lahat ng Pilipino magkakaroon sariling bahay. Huwag na natin sabihin kung sino. No? Kinuwenta ko yun 5.3 million ang backlog sa housing. Alam nyo ba kung magkano isang housing unit? Kapag horizontal, 580,000 pesos. Pagka yung pagka-vertical, pagka yung nakatungtong sa 40 square meter lot na 24 square meter na bahay, 750,000. Ito yung 2019 pa, ngayon na inflation na. Kinuwenta ko lahat yon. Ang kailangang pondo na manggagaling sa GAA, sa General Appropriations Act, mahigit 500 bilyon isang taon for 6 years.
Marami ngayon na mga kakilala natin, kababayan natin sa Mindanao, kababayan natin sa Visayas, kababayan natin sa Luzon, ang absent kumain. Buti ba ang ibang tao, sa iba absent. Ang taong mahirap, absent lagi sa pagkain. Ang laban ng bawat tatay paggising sa umaga, mahirap din. Dahil lahat tayo naghahangad ng mabuting kinabukasan sa mga anak natin. Ang nanay natin paggising sa umaga, mahirap din ang laban. Lahat tayo dito, mahirap ang laban araw-araw.
Meanwhile, President Duterte said he has already started packing up his belongings and getting ready to exit Malacanang Palace as the election campaign officially kicked off yesterday. He also said he's not supporting any candidate for now, but let's listen in.
Almost all of the candidates, in one way or the other, communicated to me na makipag-usap, hingi ng suporta. I may, in the end, if I see that it would be my advice and maybe endorsement would help kung kailangan. But at this time, I am saying that I'm not supporting anybody. Gusto ko kasi maglabas na puro ko kaibigan, unless there is a compelling reason really for me to change my mind. Nag-impact yan na nga ako I wait the day of turnover. Matikman ko rin yung feeling ng outgoing president. I will be the one to meet the new president. Then I will invite him here for a tokatis.
Instead of staying in his official residence in Malacanang compound, he said he plans to buy a 2-bedroom condo in Manila and only visit the palace for day-to-day activities. The president and his family's official residence is in Davao City. He said he wanted his next residence to be affordable because he couldn't afford expensive houses. The president said he doesn't need a big house because his children are all grown up and even have their own political careers now. The Commission on Elections has so far not received any untoward incidents at the start of the election campaign period for national candidates in the May 9 national and local polls. Again, let's listen in.
Right? But in general, just an overview first of the first day of campaigning. So far, we have not received any untoward reports, although there have been reports of some violations or some potential violations of certain election norms and practices. No, later on we will discuss how these allegations or these complaints are being dealt with on the Comelec side.
Meanwhile, Comelec Education and Information Division Director Eliza David said they have received 71 permit applications to hold campaign rallies in different regions, including 4 from presidential aspirants in the NCR and Region 3, which is Central Luzon. She said the applications of Vice President Leni Robredo and Mayor Iskodo Magoso have been denied due to lack of documents such as special power of attorney, among others. David said presidential candidate Leody de Guzman has not secured a permit from the Comelec campaign committee for his proclamation rally Tuesday evening in Quezon City. No application received, she added, when asked if the camp of the labor leader applied for a permit. Jimenez clarified the Comelec is not stopping anyone from campaigning, saying they just want to regulate mass gatherings amid the pandemic.
Spicy minced meat with basil pad krapao is a staple of Thai cuisine, but Chef Songpol swears by his plant-based pork version as investors hope rising concerns about health and environment create an opening for alternative protein in meat-heavy cuisines in Southeast Asia. Let's take a look.
Stir fry with the water and then we strain out. The reason but we can do the lab salad as well. It's a very nice one. If you can see from the colors, it has the real color texture, a little bit pink, the same like you have the fleshiness from the pork.
Ooh. Okay. And I feel like if I had a bite of this and people didn't tell me that it was like faux meat, I might think like, oh, that's pork.
The excess of the water inside from the omani meat. Then we can add the hot basil. First we put pad krapao in Thai is mean the hot basil. So actually it's the omani meat plant-based items to stir fry with the hot basil and garlic and chilies. It's super nice. The texture is close, or I could say maybe it could be one of the alternative protein plant-based that we could find and could use for Thai fish. Omani meat can go all well with all the herbs, all the flavor, even the spiciness, even the sourness. I mean, the plant-based item of the omani meat is giving the very special taste and the texture. It's pretty much closer to the pork, I would say this way. And then the flavor, even better than the pork. So the first dish is omini, but we can do the lab salad as well. It's a very nice one. If you can see from the colors, it has the real color texture, a little bit pink, the same like you have the fleshiness from the pork. And I would say that from the look, from the taste, and personally, if I do the blind test, I can't even initiate. I can't even like say which one is the pork, which one is omini meat.
And kudos to the people in Thailand because according to Tiger News, Thailand's iconic noodle dish Pad Thai has made it into the Oxford Online Dictionary. The dictionary defines Pad Thai as a dish from Thailand made with a type of noodles made from rice, spices, egg, vegetables, and sometimes meat or seafood. According to a Thai PBS World Report, Pad Thai, a stir-fried noodle dish, which is usually made with chicken, shrimp, or tofu, came into being during World War II and was originally known as Guai Teo Pad. The idea for a noodle dish was cooked up, so to speak, during a time of steep rice prices, with Thailand's leader of the time, Plek Pibol Songkram, suggesting a national dish made from noodles. The cheaper alternative to rice was widely available and worked with other local ingredients, in addition to its meat, seafood, or tofu component. Pad Thai is rounded out with the addition of fish sauce, tamarind juice, and palm sugar, giving it its unique sweet and savory flavors.
All those food is making me hungry. Thank you very much, Charlene, for keeping me company today here on ASEAN in Focus.
Thank you so much, Alma. Now I feel very, very hungry.
I miss
And
Fanta.
that's the latest news. And that's the latest news in the ASEAN region. Thank you for joining us today here in ASEAN in Focus. This is Charlene Navaja from your Vietnam Bureau, and we live in interesting times.
And we'll see you back tomorrow, same time, same place, here on ASEAN in Focus. I'm Alma Angeles. Stay in the news because we live in interesting times.
Safe, Barry.